guys, so today I'm going to be filming a video talking about products I am getting rid of. As I'm sure you guys can imagine, I have a relatively extensive makeup collection. I try to go through and declutter once every few months just because I get a lot of new products coming in, but I'm not really getting rid of old products or things that I'm not using anymore. And this last declutter, I was pretty harsh. I so far have about 3 boxes that are this size that I have full of stuff. And I still have some more stuff to go through. In case you guys are curious about what I do with makeup that I declutter, usually my friends and family get kind of like first pick. I'll put my boxes off to the side of stuff that I've decluttered, and whenever somebody comes over or if it's a product that I know that they might like, I'll bring it to them. They can go through the boxes, take stuff for their friends and family, take stuff for themselves. Anything that is unopened or unused, either because I know it's a product I'm not going to use or because I have extras of it, I will donate to various women's shelters. And then the products that are used, there are a few shelters in my area that will accept some used products like eyeshadow palettes and powder blushes and powder foundations, and then anything like mascaras or lip glosses or lipsticks that have been used, I typically end up throwing away. So anyways, I have a ton of shit that I decluttered, like I said, but I kind of just picked a few things that I thought you guys might be interested to hear about why I'm getting rid of. Okay, by far and away, the 2 products that got the chop the quickest were eyeshadow palettes and lip products. So I've picked out a few palettes to tell you guys about, but I have an entire box that is exclusively eyeshadow palettes. I think palettes are one of those things that come out very frequently, and for me, I don't find a huge discrepancy between different formulations. Like, I feel like there's definite good formulations and bad formulations, but there's a lot of formulations that are just kind of like, it's an eyeshadow. So when it came to eyeshadows, I tried to only keep palettes that I genuinely continue to use, or things that have such a unique color or such a unique formula that like I can't replace it with something else in my collection. I ended up getting rid of a lot of my Kat Von D palettes. I just felt like a lot of her palettes had very similar coloring. They were all very smoky, things that I don't really gravitate towards as much anymore, and colors that were also pretty easily duped. And I just noticed that I hadn't really touched these palettes at all since like the first time I had used them. So it wasn't something where I was like, oh yeah, that smoky palette from Kat Von D, I'm gonna go dig through my collection and take it out. I also ended up getting rid of a lot of the older Anastasia palettes. So this one is the Self-Made palette, and then I also have the Tamana Dress Your Face palette here. The one big thing that I find with Anastasia is that she comes out with a ton of eyeshadow palettes, and a lot of those palettes have repeat colors throughout them. So I just found myself going through my collection and saying like, okay, like even if I was to keep this palette for this color, it either came out in a single or it came out in another palette, so I don't really have to worry about it. All the other colors in that palette are easily duped or things that I'm not really going to use. I feel like a lot of her newer palettes like Prism and Subculture and even Modern Renaissance are a lot more unique and harder to dupe in one set palette, whereas a lot of the older ones kind of just consisted of like neutrals with like a pop of coral or a pop of aqua. The next one I got rid of, you guys might be surprised by, and this is the Art Eyeshadows. These are quite expensive. I believe this palette cost me about $100, and I bought this after like years of listening to people rave endlessly about these eyeshadows. If you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I'm a sucker for packaging. I was immediately turned off by this packaging when I bought it. I don't care about the packaging if it's a product that's so mind-blowing that it's like it doesn't matter, but that just didn't ring true for me with this palette. I felt like I got it and I was like, yeah, these work pretty much like all my other shadows. I didn't feel like they were so much easier to work with or so much more pigmented or anything. Like, it just nothing stood out to me about this. So to pay $100 and also have kind of shitty packaging on top of that, to me, I was just like, it just never hit home for me at all. This next one was kind of an immediate declutter for me. It was sort of one of those things where like I tried it once and I was like, okay, it's going in the declutter pile, and that is the Aspen and Tarte palette. It's just a very light toned palette. A lot of the shades were too light even for me to use, and I am quite fair skinned still. This shade here is the darkest shade in the palette, and it does not look dark at all. So this palette would basically only work for very, very, very fair toned people. The one color in that palette that I like is called Heart of Gold. It's what I'm wearing on my lid today, the kind of shimmery color. But even that color is just such a bad formulation that it's not worth keeping the palette for. I like that color. It's the only color that I would use out of that palette, but it just crumbles. It has so much fallout. It's so hard to work with. There's fallout if you use it with your finger. There's fallout if you use it with a wet brush, and it's so hard and time consuming to work up that color to full pigmentation and texture that it's just not worthwhile to me. So I'm sorry, there's a few things in the collection that I got rid of that are like beauty guru collabs. I'm not trying to shade anybody. It's just about the product. The next palette that I got rid of was the original Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette. I had issues with this palette from the very first time that I started using it. I felt like the mattes were very, very dry and chalky and hard to blend out, and I felt like the shimmers were very chunky and had a lot of fallout, and I just wasn't very impressed by it. So she came out with the Rose Gold Remastered palette. That one on the top being the original and the one on the bottom being the new one. They're not completely the same. They do have some different colors in the remastered one and a completely different formula. I way prefer the remastered one. It's what I wanted this one to be, so this one is getting the cut. This next one will be a surprise to none of you. This is the Kylie Jenner Bronze Extended Palette. I don't think I've kept a single thing from the Kylie Jenner makeup range. It's not even that it's like the worst product in the world. It's more so that there's nothing about it that is even moderately unique to make me want to keep it. And it's kind of one of those things where like I might be more enticed to keep their products or review their products or buy their products if you guys were more interested in it, but so many of my subscribers don't really give a shit either. So it's just kind of one of those brands that I don't see being a huge priority on my channel or in my personal life. The next one is the Dose of Colors Desi and Katie collab. So this is their little eyeshadow palette. It came with these 4 different colors and they were all supposed to be really intense metallic shades. I was kind of surprised when I got this because I was reading through reviews and seeing how people were feeling about it and nobody seemed to have any complaints, but I had the hardest time making this palette work for me. They sent it out with a slip that recommended using certain products in a certain way, like with your finger or whatever. I just felt like no matter how I applied these shadows, even if it was the way that they recommended, I got so much fallout, and I also noticed that they seemed to sting my eyes a lot. It was just kind of one of those weird things where I felt like it was a dud for me and nobody else because no one seemed to have any issues with the product at all. I held on to this guy for a very long time because I love the packaging, but it kind of came to the point where I was like, okay, I need to let it go. This was another quick declutter, the Glossier Lid Stars. I bought these for my Glossier review, pretty much knowing that I would not enjoy them. Here's my beef with cream shadows, okay? I feel like cream shadows are more of a pain in the ass to use, more of a pain in the ass to blend out, more time consuming than powder shadows, and I don't feel like they give an appearance that powder eyeshadows don't. That said, obviously there are a few cream formulations here and there that I've used and really liked, but generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of cream eyeshadows. These just didn't do it for me. They weren't exceedingly difficult to apply, but I did feel like they didn't offer anything for me where I was like, wow, this is so pretty that I can't get it from another product. It just wasn't a look that I was going for that I saw myself wanting to replicate in the future, so those were a quick declutter. I also decluttered the Urban Decay Moon Dust liquid shadows. I really wanted to like these ones because they came out with a couple cool colors that were like duochrome and stuff. I feel like duochrome is best served in like a loose pigment where you can easily put it on top of another shadow to kind of change the appearance of that shadow. I just felt like this formulation was kind of like thick and crumbly and hard to blend out and apply in a way that looked flattering. I feel like an elevated version of these products is the Stila liquid eyeshadows, which are so intense and a lot harder to dupe because they just have this really, really crazy like glitter shimmer effect that you can't really find as easily in a powder product or in a cream product. I decluttered a ton of foundations, most of them because they just either weren't the right color or they are a finish that I don't really use anymore, like something really matte or something really, really full coverage. So a lot of them were decluttered for sort of the same reasons, so I figured I'd just pick out a couple and tell you about them. One was the Huda Beauty Faux Filter High Coverage Foundation. This foundation, when I first applied, I was like, my jaw dropped. Wow! I was actually so shocked by the coverage. It is truly unlike any foundation I've ever tried in my life. It was so unbelievably thick and full coverage. It was just like on a whole other level. So if you love high coverage foundations, you probably will like this one a lot. It's crazy. Like, to me, it just felt like I was wearing a mask. And I also found that I had a hard time shearing this guy out. Sometimes there's certain high coverage foundations that I'll keep because I like how they look sheared out with like a moisturizer or primer or whatever. But I found that this one just didn't shear out as well. It kind of got really streaky and patchy when you tried to shear it out. So that one went in the bin. I also decluttered my Fenty Beauty foundations. I just didn't really like how this made my skin look. It's a little bit too matte for me. It's a little bit too full coverage. I held on to this one for quite a while just because I feel like it's a little piece of like beauty history. I really do feel like they did such a good job of being inclusive right from the get-go. And I just thought it was really cool on the day that these launched to read through Sephora reviews of people saying that like they had found a foundation for them when they've never been able to find a match in their life. So I really I felt a type of way about this. That said, it's better served somewhere else because I haven't been using it. Which, by the way, if you guys are ever planning on donating makeup, one of the biggest things that they ask for is foundation and mascara. It's funny because my friend Shaylin, she goes to this church where every year they do like this Christmas shopping thing where basically people donate like a ton of different stuff, be it like beauty products or gifts or clothing or whatever, where people can go in and like shop around Christmas for either themselves or their families. It's all just donations, obviously, so it's free for them. So we put aside makeup for like months for that. So I donated a ton of stuff to that thing. And when we did, I was putting things aside and I was like, oh my God, people are gonna be so excited because I had like YSL products and like new Tarte products and stuff like that that were things that people within like the beauty community were so excited for. And apparently on the day, none of that stuff got taken. People just wanted like foundation, even if it didn't match them properly, and like concealer and mascara. And she said that the eyeshadow palettes and lipsticks and like all that kind of fun stuff that I was so excited to donate because I thought people would be excited for them. Apparently nobody took it until they were allowed to come in for like second rounds, where once everybody has gone through, then you can come back and kind of like pick more stuff if you want. So if you are gonna donate, the basics are what people are usually looking for. Okay, so I ended up decluttering a ton of highlighters. Highlighters have been so popular over the past couple years. I've gotten so many highlighters in the mail. I have bought so many highlighters myself. It's funny because it really is one of those products where like a brand can release a champagne highlighter and we're like, holy shit, I need that. And then another brand can release a champagne highlighter and we're like, oh my God, a visionary, I need that. And then a third brand can be like, hey, check out this champagne highlighter. And we're like, brilliant. Yes, take my money. So when it came to highlighters, there were certain things that I held on to just because I was like, this is beautiful and I just want to look at it. And then I tried to be really harsh with like, okay, how many of these look virtually the same when they're actually on the face? So again, there's a ton of highlighters that I just got rid of because they were basically dupes of each other or close enough that I would never notice the difference. I tried to just keep the ones that I prefer the formulation or the finish of, but I did pick out a couple highlighters that I got rid of for different reasons. So the first ones are the RMS Breasty. That fucked with my mind. It says RMS. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it says RMS, and then behind it really lightly it says beauty. But my mind looked at that and was like, breasty. Anyways, these should have been right up my alley. They are like a cream highlighter, and when I touched them in store, I was like, yes, everything I've ever wanted and more. I love cream highlight. I love things that look super dewy and like wet on the face. Like I look moist at all times. There's times where I leave the house and I'm like, I wonder if I make other people uncomfortable with how wet I truly do look. Because I just imagine someone looking at me and being like, you oily bitch, like please take my napkin, blot that shit down. But it's purposeful. That's the worst part. Anyways, when I got these, I thought I was going to love them. I got them in two different colors. I got Magic Luminizer and Living Luminizer. I just feel like these don't do much for me. They swatch really beautifully on the hand, but the formulation feels quite thick, like almost a Vaseline on your face. And I just feel like it looks almost like there's pigment sitting underneath a top layer of like Vaseline. It just seemed to kind of make me look more textured, and I find that it didn't wear very well. It slipped around a ton. It made my bronzer and foundation underneath look really patchy. And I also have found that while I've not been using them, they have this really, really thick layer of some kind of oil coming out of the product, so it really seems like an unstable formula to me. Separation is pretty normal within liquid products, but with cream products, I just don't find it as common to like open them up after time and have like a thick layer of oil that's come forward. I have a ton of cream highlighters that when I open them up months down the road, they look exactly the same as the day that I bought them. I also got rid of quite a few bronzers. This is the Makeup Forever Pro Bronze Fusion. I did save one or two colors of this, but I found that for some reason, Okay, here's the thing. You know the whole idea of like feast and famine, where like it's embedded in our minds to constantly eat more and more because our ancestors lived through famine, so whenever they got food, they felt like they had to gorge themselves. I feel like I'm almost that way with makeup because I remember a time where like I cherished a singular eyeshadow that I was able to buy on my paycheck because I was like, I can literally only put aside $20 to buy this one MAC eyeshadow, and that MAC eyeshadow meant the world to me. When brands send out PR, a lot of the times they'll send you the entire range, so they won't just send you like 1 or 2 bronzers. They'll send you every bronzer in the collection, which is great because you might use colors that wouldn't normally be for your skin tone for other things or whatever. So it's nice to receive all these products, but then there's some products that like simply you just aren't going to use. But I just feel like there was something in my heart where I was like, ooh, like I just don't want to get rid of this, because I remember a time where like I would have killed to have this much makeup. So I did end up getting rid of a ton of bronzers just because they were either too dark, too light, too warm, too cool, whatever it may be. I got rid of so many lip products, and I still feel like that's the part of my collection that I really need to like keep hunkering down on. I know that I have 8,000 dupes for every lipstick in my collection, and I also know that I basically only wear nudes. And I still can't seem to get rid of them. I don't know why. So with my lipsticks, I tried to attack from the vantage point of what formulations and textures I know I'm not using anymore or not interested in anymore versus color. So one of the biggest things was liquid lipsticks, as I'm sure you guys all saw coming. I rarely wear liquid lipsticks. I even more rarely wear them out of the house. I find them so uncomfortable to wear. I find them so drying. I feel like when they come off, it's so noticeable and crumbly and patchy looking and gross. I also feel like I'm just not as inclined to wear more bold colors when they are liquid lipstick because it feels so opaque and so matte and so intense that I feel like it's so much more unwearable. It kind of goes back into my whole thought process of wearing things that are easier to apply and look less noticeable when they do come off versus wearing things that are supposed to be very long wearing and look super noticeable and really, really bad and crumbly and shitty when they wear off. And I also find that liquid lipsticks are so hard to reapply. You basically have to completely remove them and reapply them with a lot of the formulations. Like I don't walk around with makeup wipes and a foundation to do a full like liquid lipstick removal and reapply. So anyways, I got rid of a ton of liquid lipsticks. There's certain brands that I'm more attached to that I kept, but I'm probably going to go through them and declutter based on color rather than the fact that they're liquid lipsticks. I also got rid of a ton of the Marc Jacobs glosses. They sent out the entire range when they did send them out, and I actually really like this formulation, but I just went through and got rid of a bunch of the colors that I feel like I don't really wear. It's kind of one of those things where I feel like when you have too many options, you're almost more likely to choose none of them. So while I enjoy this formula, I feel like every time I open that drawer, I'd look at like 30 different lip glosses and be like, probably just gonna go with my usual lip gloss instead. And because lip glosses turn so much quicker than a lot of other products do, I'm trying to kind of cut down on the colors I know I don't reach for as often so that I hopefully use up the colors that I do like. I also got rid of a lot of bullet lipsticks. Dose of Colors was a big one for me. This is like not even their logo anymore. These are so expired, it's like not even remotely funny. This was another one of those brands that I kind of held on to because they were one of the first people to start sending me PR, and I loved them. Like I just thought it was the best thing on the planet. Also, this color Love Potion used to be my favorite lipstick color. Why? I don't know. I thought I looked fantastic with it on. So yeah, I just found myself like holding on to these for more like emotional reasons, even though I wasn't wearing them anymore, and they're horrifically expired. Like they smell like rotting corpses. I also got rid of almost all of my Melt lipsticks. This was another one of those brands that when I started Instagram, they were so popular and I was like dying to get their attention. Like I bought one of their lipsticks and I wore it in so many fucking photos tagging them because I just wanted them to reach out to me so badly. And like at that time, their like cool colored lipsticks were so cool on Instagram. Like you knew when someone was wearing a Melt lipstick, like you'd be like, that's Space Cake, that's DGAF. You knew when you saw a photo that that's what they were wearing, and I wanted so badly to be one of those people. So when they finally did reach out to me, I was like, fuck yes, and I was so excited to get their products, and I was like, Shady Lady, boom, bang, bang, boom, Belladonna, what up? Like I thought I was the coolest. This probably means nothing to you if you weren't on Instagram at that time. But I've always had an issue with this formula. It's so dry, it's alarming. When I swatched these for the first time, I was so shocked because it literally like it pulled on my skin to apply it. And I explicitly remember that I could not wear these in the winter because if I tried to apply them over chapped lips, it would actually make my lips bleed from how hard these lipsticks tug when you're applying them. I do feel like this formulation is very hit and miss. There are a few colors that aren't as bad. So I did hold on to a couple colors from them that I felt like were really unique or had a formulation that wasn't as drying, but I did declutter most of them. Sorry, Melt. All right, you guys, that is everything for me today. Obviously, there's so many more products that I could talk about, but those are the ones that I thought were just kind of interesting or unique reasons why I got rid of them. If you guys want me to do a video similar to this on what I kept and why, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I think it could be interesting, you know, who knows? It would basically be like a gigantic favorites video, but there are some things that I keep literally just because the packaging is so beautiful, like the Fenty Beauty Body Lava, for instance. Will I ever use this? No. Am I going to be buried with it? Yes. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out and watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.